In a letter written to the GOP-controlled House Committee, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg confessed that in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Zuckerberg went on to express regret for giving in to the coercion and promises not to be strong-armed in the future. The Biden-Harris administration claims they were just encouraging responsible actions to protect public health and safety during the COVID pandemic. Do you want to know the truth? You can't say we did the best we could because we didn't know what we were dealing with, and then turn around and claim they knew that any information or viewpoints that contradicted their narrative was misinformation. If public health and safety was the primary objective, they should have embraced any and all knowledge from doctors and scientists who were on the front lines fighting COVID. Instead, they crafted their political agenda from the ivory towers in Washington, D.C. Last I checked, a viable public health plan for a pandemic is not ignorance. And who gets to decide what misinformation is? The FDA recently admitted that 47% of their budget comes from the pharmaceutical industry. When we look at America's Fortune 500 companies, for example, in 56% of very large corporations, the top shareholding is less than 15%. So should we trust anything from a government entity that is essentially a majority-owned subsidiary of Big Pharma? Remember the horse medicine meme they sent out? We now know from evidence revealed in a court case that the FDA intentionally misled the public about the safety of ivermectin. In other words, the FDA had information, decades worth, proving ivermectin is one of the safest drugs in the world, safer than over-the-counter Tylenol. Why would they do that? Because they wanted to protect the uptake of the mRNA vaccines produced by Pfizer and Moderna. Writing in her book about how she tricked President Trump into extended lockdowns, Dr. Birx brags that she and Tony Fauci knew that flattening the curve was just the first step to leading to longer and more aggressive interventions. Dr. Scott Gottlieb confessed on national television that they made up the social distancing mandate like a rainbow unicorn. And how can we forget Dr. Fauci, the godfather of COVID-19, who later was forced to admit that natural immunity does protect you because, quote, the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself, end quote. I'd have to produce an hour-long documentary to walk through all of the other mandates the Harris-Biden administration forced upon us. Instead, let's ask two questions. Can you name one thing the Harris-Biden administration was proven right about? And why did more Americans die after the mRNA shots were introduced, even though COVID had become less severe than the common cold? Come on, how many times would your doctor have to lie to you before you got a second opinion? And now, with the election coming, maybe the better question is, how many times would the Harris-Biden administration have to lie and censor you before you changed your vote? I'm Brian Tuttermore with your Cosmic Reckoning. And remember, think right to live free.